Like other currencies in the emerging market, the ringgit has suffered from China's slowdown in the past 2 years, as well as Donald Trump's upset victory on the 8th of November. Now, the governor of Bank Negara Malaysia, Muhammad Ibrahim, said in a dinner speech that there is no new policy on capital flows, and there is no capital control either. So, Jameel, the issue of the declining ringgit has been a hot topic in Malaysia ever since it took a plunge after the US presidential election. Now, what is your take on the declining ringgit?
Sure, so obviously the local currency has been hit very hard since the US presidential election. But what I would say is don't be too concerned about this because the dollar is strong on a global level. And the same question I've been asked today about the ringgit, I was asked last week about the Indonesian rupiah, and a few weeks before that about the Chinese RMB. This is a dollar story. On a global level, the dollar's reached over 100. It's the highest level for about 13 years, and the dollar is literally the king of the currency markets.
Jameel said the British pound has fallen 30% this year and the euros closed in on 12 years low last week. He added that the ringgit is not a concern about the economy. Jameel said the devaluation of currencies is not a domestic issue.
As long as the dollar remains strong, the Malaysian ringgit on a pressured trend is going to remain the theme.
Right, so do you see the plunging of the ringgit as being a long-term hurdle?
This is interesting. Actually, it's difficult to project because this is a dollar story. So on a global level, we do not know whether the currencies can weaken a little bit further or whether they can rebound. This is probably going to be the way of the game until Donald Trump officially takes over president.
The inauguration of the president-elect Donald Trump is set to take place on the 20th of January next year.
At technical level, the dollar's looking very strong. When it surpassed 100, over a 12-year high, it's set up the basis for more gains. We've seen this over the past week. It's possible the dollar can get a little bit stronger in the short term, medium term, which means it's also possible that the ringgit can weaken a little bit more. But let's wait for when he's inaugurated, which is in January, and then we can see what the longer term trend is.
On what to expect as we approach the year end of 2016, Jameel said there would be more pressure due to the dollar.
Although it might be concerning to see the ringgit weaken, I would say on a global level, this trend is going to continue elsewhere. The British pound's also weak 30% this year. It's not just Malaysia, this is a global thing. And it's a dollar story.
As for the ringgit outlook for 2017, Jameel said it is now hard to project due to the fact that Donald Trump has won the recent presidential election. Analysts and market experts, along with various central banks, are now waiting to see what Trump's policies are and what he will introduce once he steps into office in late January next year.
Well, we can see a few different measures being introduced. For example, some central banks are intervening in the markets. I don't personally think this should be a longer term trend because it suggests that I'm a bit concerned about your currency. I need to spend money to protect it. You can do it occasionally, but once you continue doing it, you could raise uncertainty. But again, it's a dollar story. Yeah. If you look at the Malaysian ringgit against the British pound, against the euro, against the Japanese yen, against the Australian dollar, maybe Indonesian rupiah, you will not see the ringgits falling against everything. It's just very fast acceleration against the dollar, its weakness, but it's happening elsewhere.
So do you expect Asian currencies in general to take a beating as we go towards 2017?
Well, this is an interesting question. What I would say is that it depends on whether you're tracing these currencies just against the dollar. For example, the Chinese RMB, the yuan, it's weakened against the dollar only 5 to 6% this year. But yet in the news headlines, record low, record low, record low. On the greater scale of things, it's 5 to 6%. If you look at the Chinese currency against a basket of different currencies, pound, euro, you'll see that the Chinese currency is actually strengthening. And it provides the basis to see even more weakness in this currency in the longer term because it has to maintain competitiveness. It's going to be a similar story with the Japanese yen. I would even say it should be a similar story to the ringgit. So if you're concerned right now and you're watching, my currency's weakening, oh my God, my currency's in a crisis, take a step back and look how the currency is performing against other currencies. Because the weakness against the dollar is happening on a global level, and it might have a benefit to the economy because the currency has to remain competitive, because every currency is being traced against the dollar.
Jameel also shared on the trends to look out for, namely the ongoing weakness in the British pound, the European Union referendum outcome, which might bring some uncertainties, Brexit, and the political risks seen in the US and the UK, as well as the election in Europe, which is set to take place next year.
What's happened with the market reaction following Donald Trump's victory is quite unexpected. I did think the dollar could strengthen, but I did not think US equity markets would hit even new record highs. And to be honest with you, I don't think many people did. They believe that basically Donald Trump's going to introduce some very business-friendly policies, and it's possible he's going to, but you can't introduce these things overnight. It's not that quick. It's not that simple. So let's see what he introduces, how positive this could really be on the US economy, how positive it could be for the dollar. And let's not forget as well, another reason why the dollar is strengthening is because there's 100% expectations that the Federal Reserve will raise US interest rates in December. There's a lot of different market influences and factors at play. We can't just look at any one source.
Right, so do you have any advice for Forex traders in this challenging time?
Education, education, and education. It might sound simple, but it is literally that straightforward. Your education when you're trading, or your education when you follow the markets, it never stops. It never ends. Even such historical moments such as the US election are education for a professional who's been in this game for a long time now.
So now let's talk about pegging. Do you believe that pegging the ringgit to the US dollar will help stabilize the currency?
Okay, if you're looking at stabilization, yes, it can stabilize the currency because you have an official exchange rate, but it won't work. Right. Simple reason being, this is a dollar story. So if the ringgit was pegged against the dollar, every other currency would have to be pegged against the dollar. Additionally, when you set a currency exchange rate, maybe a peg, you're promoting a commitment towards this peg, which means foreign investors have to then take that into account. Let's say in January, Donald Trump takes over, or some sort of unforeseen market event comes to the story, and the dollar flattens. What are you going to do then to that peg? You have to respect the commitment. Because let's just say, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, let's just say, breaking news today, we're going to peg the ringgit to the dollar at 450. You've got to respect this. If the dollar then gets flattened, it's a dollar story, and the peg then, gets left and the currency's in free fall, there's a huge credibility risk. And this could pull investment and huge economic damages to Malaysia for a long time to come. So that's why I'm saying don't peg the currency.
Okay. So do you see any further implications on the ringgit in the event that there is a Federal Reserve rate hike?
Well, we know that there's 100% expectations for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. This says a lot about what's going on in the markets at the moment, because I don't think there's ever been 100% expectations. A US interest rate rise has already been priced in. Many think, well, I believe that the Federal Reserve are going to pull the trigger on interest rate rise. If they don't, there's going to be huge volatility again, another educational lesson for investors. But what we need to look out for is what the projections are for 2017. What could the US Federal Reserve do in 2017? Because this would then set the implications for how the currency market is going to behave in the future.
As to what Jameel Ahmad said, this is a US dollar story. What happens to ringgit, we'll just have to wait and see.